proud we have HArt. HArt is the state organizer for the Florida Media Coalition, our new best friend. We see you a lot now.
Our new best friend. You've been
Welcome
on
to
the
the show.
I feel like you should be hosting the show.
You just returned. You recently attended the National Conference for Media Reform up in our friendly Midwestern state.
Yes, I did.
What did you think of that?
Well, I didn't think it was a Far-Left Fiesta. And I'm certainly not a left-wing radical.
I didn't think you were.
But there are a lot of thoughtful people up there looking at big media issues, and unfortunately O'Reilly's spin on it wasn't quite accurate.
Well, why don't you tell us
what...
Give your take.
People that missed it, people that didn't see it, it's there.
For the benefit of the people who didn't see the O'Reilly factor on Monday night, he really bored in on the really over-the-top flaming liberals who were speaking out there. And to be sure, there were partisans there, and they'd almost already elected Senator Obama. Well, that's all well and good, but Bill Moyers was there too, as was Dan Rather, Amy Goodman, who hosts Democracy Now! On 700 stations nationwide, including Tampa Bay Community Network. And they had some pretty thoughtful things to say about the state of American media, particularly big media.
Like what?
Well, for example, and this is my area of interest, media coverage of the run-up to the Gulf War. Everybody who's come out of the administration and written a book about it, most recently Scott McClellan, have talked about how the American public was sold on going to war. A lot of questions about whether or not there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. UN inspectors were dubious, the CIA was unsure, and yet Colin Powell went before the UN and made the case. The American press played that as a slam dunk. European press wasn't so sure. They wanted to know where the smoking gun was. Well, we went to war seeking weapons of mass destruction. We didn't find them. You know, from where I sit, if the neoconservatives wanted to go to war over oil, they should have just said so. We don't have enough energy resources in this country right now. The American public might have bought it. But when you have people like White House press secretaries and senior level administrators coming out and saying, hey, this was sold, the intelligence was dubious, my question is, where was the news media? The news media.
Why weren't they cracking it to everybody to stand up for our country and ourselves, right?
Pardon me?
Why weren't they cracking it so that we could be informed to be able to stand up for it or fight for what we believe in as a public?
Look, you know, to have American foreign policy now be one of going to war because of a perceived threat is a fundamental shift in American foreign policy. And the news media needs to adjust to that and really needs to ask the hard questions. If you look at the media coverage in the run-up to the war, which is what I did a lot of when I was in Minneapolis, there was a lot of hype. There was a lot of talk about shock and awe and countdown to war and so on and so forth. And then, of course, we had the embedding of the reporters with the troops. That was seen initially as a victory for the First Amendment.
Right.
Well, there's not a lot of time for thoughtful reporting with the CNN effect going on. You go live, you go now, and it's on the air. And a lot of the reporting lacked context. But the more troublesome issue is weapons of mass destruction and a lack of a plan for post-war Iraq.
Right.
Did you get a chance to sit down and talk to Dan Rather, or was he just a guest speaker there?
No,
or Bill Moyers.
Unfortunately, I was just a worker among workers there. I didn't have that kind of entree. But Rather and Moyers had some thoughtful things to say, and they weren't championing Senator Obama's cause or coming across as particularly liberal. They were coming across as experienced newsmen from the days when CBS really meant something.
And an unbiased view.
And they said, look, American news consumers need to think critically, and you need to have multiple sources of information if you're going to make informed decisions in a democracy. Don't just rely on the big networks. Look at alternative sources of information.
You know,
that was the message.
That's cool.
This brings
I
back,
respect that.
how does Fox News now looked upon by other media? What are their thoughts on Fox News and how they covered this or talked about this?
Well, O'Reilly just glossed over in his report in the segment on Monday night. He didn't talk anything about the substantive issues that were covered there. He was really focused on whether or not Fox had been fair to the presidential candidates. By all accounts, they are. They were. They have a reputation of being a conservative network. But O'Reilly's a smart guy, and he has serious news credentials, and he's got a master's degree in government from Harvard University.
Right.
So he's no slouch.
No.
But he also used to be the host of Entertainment Tonight. And you got to take that with a grain of salt when you watch the O'Reilly Factor, because in a way,
he puts a little spin love on it, man. He's got that entertainment
It's
spin.
news and entertainment.
Exactly. But is that like where people are gathering most of their news source? They find a, for the lack of a better term, somebody to present the news to them, like Matt Lauer, and do they hold that Matt Lauer's opinion as gospel? Or, like you're saying, do people go out to other sources like the St. Petersburg Times to read an article that's not pulled off the same farm of information that Fox is getting from ABC, NBC, and all the broadcast stations? You know, I mean,
most people get their information, their news, from television, primarily local news, but also from network news. The Media Reform Conference was about people looking at alternative sources, be they online, be
whatever
your
it is,
community radio.
But just a taste of different things and different perspectives that are out there that are not for really getting ratings and selling advertising.
If you want an eye-opener, you can watch the BBC World News on any PBS station every day.
Right.
And their take on American politics and American current affairs is quite different from what you'll see on the networks. Does it make it right or wrong? No, but it's different, and it gives.
But you can educate yourself by listening and seeing the other sides and the other perspectives of things, right? Is that what you're saying? Get out there and be smarter about all your decisions.
Let's look at as many different sources of information as you can on a vitally important issue, like a decision to go to war. That's a big one.
Yeah, or who you're going to pick for the president.
We got to wrap this up now. But what is your take on O'Reilly as a newsman now? I'm really interested to know what you think.
When I've read his books, and I think he's an intelligent guy. I wish he would stop spinning this into an entertainment format, and he's so quick to go to guns and so quick to demagogue the issues. He doesn't have to establish his credentials as a conservative every night. I know he's a conservative. We all know he's a conservative.
Right. Yeah, but he's a little too much mixed between entertainment and delivering the news. When is it just news and when is it entertainment? Well,
that's his thing, though. He wants to get viewers, and he wants to get more people believing what he believes, though. So he's got to take a different approach to it.
Yeah,
he's not taking
but to brand Moyers and rather as liberals, just because they show up at a conference on a serious issue, the state of mass media in the United States, that's a cheap shot. No, you're absolutely right. Give us some contact information if we want to get a hold of you or get involved with the Florida Media Coalition. And you can write to me at my email address, hartm@tbcn.org, or go to the media-democracy.net website. Wonderful. Beautiful.